Hi everyone, welcome back to OCAV today for part 3 of building the new bird room. And as you can see behind me, this giant shed log cabin is indeed our new bird room. It's arrived in early December, so we've got plenty of work to do in it. In today's video, we need to make this our dream modern bird room for our canaries, our native finches, and anything else that has feathers. So let's go on inside. So as you can see, we're in the new bird room right now. However, it's not a bird room, is it? It's just a really big shed that's empty. There's no birds in here and there's no cages in here. So there's nothing to say this is a bird room. So that's why today we're going to be putting everything down. We're going to be making this from a shed into a bird room. The first thing we're going to do is put down a lino floor. It's a waterproof and seed-proof floor that can be easily cleaned and disinfected to make sure our birds are healthy, they're safe, and it's a really nice environment for them. So that is now the floor lino. We've got a dark sort of wood pattern lino on the floor, and it means that it's now going to be all waterproof. It means that we can sweep up easily with any mess that the birds make, as they always do, whether it be throwing sort of wood chips and easy bed out of their enclosures, their cages, whether it be seed everywhere. It just means it's so much easier to clean up, and it is just so much nicer. And plus, you can disinfect it really easily as well to help stop and spread disease. Now, the roof doesn't look all so pleasant, does it? It's just a load of beams, it's all wood, and it's just not going to be ideal for having it as a bird room, really. If I can help it, I want to cover all this. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to first put some rock wool in there, we're going to insulate it, and then we're going to cover it with some plastic sheets. And that's going to mean that they're going to reflect light as well as keeping the place well insulated, so it can keep it cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. So we've had to put some masks on because it is rather fibrous. It releases a lot of fibres into the air, so it's rather unpleasant when you're putting it up and having to wear goggles as well so it doesn't go in your eyes. But that is half of it done. Rock wool. We've got some sort of duct tape, and we just duct taped it up there for the moment just to hold it up when we put some boards up. So the next job is to cut half of the boards for this first sort of section, all this plastic sort of cladding, and that will be the line for the roof. Along with insulating the roof, we've also got to insulate the walls of this. So we've got some polystyrene boards that will fit in here just nicely to cut, and it should insulate it quite nicely, keep it warm in here in the winter and cooler in the summer, of course. Now that all the polystyrene insulation is up across this wall and the rest of the walls in this new bird room, we need to board out the walls. So we're going to be using some plywood, and we're going to fit out the whole place in the plywood. We're going to then paint it. So the first thing we need to do is cut it all and get it fitted. whole bird room is now plywooded out. We've boarded out every single wall under the windows and everything. It's all done nicely. Now what we have done is filled all the gaps, like down here, with caulk. And the reason being is, one, it gives it a nicer finish, and two, it's going to stop mite from being able to get behind the plywood. So the next thing to do now is whitewash everything. I'm not too bothered about it looking just all plywood. It's going to look so much nicer if everything's done in white. It's going to reflect the light, and it's going to mean it's far easier to notice any dirt that we can clean off and make it really healthy and hygienic in here. So let's get to painting. As you can see, that is 3 coats of paint on all of the walls in here. It looks absolutely fantastic, and I highly recommend that you use a roller if you're looking to do this sort of thing. It took me and my mate 8 hours to put 3 coats of paint on. We did the first one half with a brush and it took forever. So please use a roller if you are looking to do this sort of thing. And that goes with most decorating things anyway. I'm not a painter or decorator, but it did work a hell of a lot better. Now, to make sure that it is finished nicely, there were some gaps in the roof where perhaps the plywood didn't meet or the plastic just didn't quite go, and it didn't look great. So we've got a 20mm by 20mm quarter circle trim that's just a nice finish around the roof. We've sealed it at the top with silicone and at the bottom with caulk to stop any mite getting behind there, and it looks far better like that as well. Prior to even ordering the shed, I did a draw out of exactly the size of the shed was going to be, which is a 15 by 12. I've took half a foot in building materials, so the original outside, which is going to be 12 foot long or 15 foot long, I've then took into account the insulation, I've took into account the support beams, and I've took into account the thickness of this. So 15 foot, I've gone 14.5 foot by 11.5 foot for the internal dimensions to make sure that I've got plenty of room and nothing doesn't fit. Then I needed to make sure that I've got the most economic layout, and that means I want to make sure I make best use of the space. Birds are very messy creatures, we need all sorts of things for them, so I needed to make sure not only did I have all the cages, but I've got areas to store my drinkers, feeders, perches, any spare equipment such as cages or anything like that, might be show cages. I've got a sink so I can clean things down, whether that be drinkers, feeders, show cages, perches, anything that birds can mess up. So I've got a really good layout that suits the area best. It took me probably 10 different attempts of different layouts, and I found quite a good sort of sweet spot of exactly how I need it to be prior to ordering any cages and the new bird room. Now that we've got it sort of complete in here, we have actually already got some cages behind the camera, which you'll see in the next episode. But I need to make sure that where we haven't, I've marked out where the cages are going to go. And that's for a very simple reason, is that we want to make sure that anything that we put in that's permanent, such as wired sockets that we need to do to plug in hoovers, dehumidifiers, fridge, freezers, anything like that, aren't going to be interfering with where our cages are. So I've used mastic and I've gone around the walls at 6 feet high with these particular cages that are going here to make sure that nothing goes anywhere below that line. So if I do need to run something over to the far side, I've got that option. And to make sure that low down, I've done it on the floor as well to make sure no sockets are going to interfere with cage placement. And I highly recommend that you do this if you're looking to build your own bird room, so you don't make up any mistakes that you're then going to have to fix later. When I originally decided that a new bird room needed to be built, I came up with a list of absolute must-have specific requirements that I needed to make sure that were in this bird room. And that included an influence, the size of the bird room and the layout of all the cages and the design of specific things like where the door was going to be or how high the windows would be. So this is my must-have list, so let's go through it now. First off, it was LED bar lights, and you can see that we've got 2 of them behind me. Currently they are being run on a extension cable, but that's just because we're currently just working on the wiring up and getting all that done. But it'll be done for episode 4 of building the new bird room. Now, The reason LEDs were so important is one had to be LEDs because birds can see different sort of light than we can. And if it wasn't at the correct frequency, at the correct hertz, then it would appear to flicker for the birds. Now LEDs, as far as I'm concerned, don't have that. And that's something that I've understood from uni at looking at different poultry management systems, is that LEDs don't have that flicker effect to birds. So it does mean that it won't affect them in breeding season if the light does appear to flicker to them when it doesn't to us. So that was the first thing, is making sure that we can enhance natural light as much as possible with having these LED bar lights. Now you might wonder, why have we got them sort of there rather than on the roof? The reason being, which you will see in the next episode, is that these lights shine onto the cages which are there, and it's going to light up all of them. They aren't bad, so they're not hard to look at, they don't hurt their eyes to look at, and they're just going to be far better, and I do think they just make the whole place a lot brighter, and I'm really pleased with them. The second requirement was a stainless steel sink. Now, you might wonder, why did it have to be stainless and not porcelain? And it's quite simple, it's stainless. And it means that it can clean it down and it'll look as good as new as the day it was bought. Now, I did actually get this pre-owned, and it was pre-owned but new. The person had bought it brand new. It had still been all the packaging and had never used it. So I got it for a great price. It's got storage underneath as well for all cleaning products and different things like that. And it's just an excellent piece of kit, and I highly recommend that you do get one for your bird room if you're looking to do a new one or looking to make a few changes. Huge thank you to Michael Blakeman as well, who's a bird fancier, who managed to collect this for me and take it me to the All British show in December. Huge thank you, mate, really appreciate it. And it's a great thing about the hobby, is that a lot of people are really willing to help from all over the place, and you scratch my back, I scratch yours, and that's exactly how it goes. So yeah, a stainless steel sink was another super important requirement. In my previous bird rooms, I regret not making room for a fridge like this, because they're just so useful to have and at your disposal when you're surrounded by your birds. And the reason being is, like, every night in the breeding season, I'm having to take out egg food, defrost it in the house, in the house fridge, which I must say, my mum's not rather happy with. And then the same goes for mealworms. There's no way I'm bringing those in the house. So being able to actually bring them in, defrost them from the freezer in the garage the night before, and have it on tap to use in the morning is an absolute wonder. So I've got loads of room to store that. I can have a couple of rows of egg food. I can store my medication in there that needs to be chilled. And I've also got a little water dispenser as well. Not really going to use it for myself, but I could actually use it if I'm giving a bird that needs a bit of medication or a bit of something different that needs to be chilled. I've got that option, and I'm really looking forward to being able to have this at my disposal. And what's something that worked really nice for me is that it fits underneath this sink, so it just means that storage is a lot easier, and that you're making much more out of the room that you've got. So a little mini fridge like this is something I highly recommend you get hold of. I cannot recommend a vinyl floor enough. It just means that sweeping everything up is so much easier. Any spillages, they're not going to ruin the wooden floor, they're not going to make it swell, they're not going to make it crack like it has done in previous bird rooms. And huge thank you goes out to my mate Charles Hepworth, who sorted me out with this. Local guy, keeps birds as well, and a family friend. So huge thank you, mate, really appreciate it. And yeah, get a vinyl floor in your bird room. It's so much easier, and they're absolutely fantastic. And you can also seal around the edges with silicone. Make sure no seed goes underneath where your walls are. It just means cleaning up is far easier as well. A medicine cabinet's something else that's really useful and that I really wanted to have in the new bird room. I can store my medication in it, and I can store supplements in it. I can have them all in one place, all arranged nicely as to how I need them. And it keeps them safe and it keeps them dry. So if I've got any medication which is particularly hard to get hold of for whatever reason, or rather expensive, it's locked away in here. I've got anything that can't be touching water, so Carafil Red, anything to do with colour feeding, anything to do with like powdered vitamins, doesn't need to be contaminated at all with any water, otherwise it goes off, goes in here. Really useful piece of kit. And I just need to build a couple of shelves in this, and it's going to be bang on exactly what I need to have. Now, Believe it or not, this is actually a stainless steel electrical box, but it just works perfect as a medicine cabinet, so having this in here is going to be really useful. I might mount it on a wall, or I might put it down with the sink as well. It's all stainless, it'll all match anyway, and I think it'll be a really useful addition to have here. In my birdrooms, space is a really big priority. I don't like to be tripping over things. I like to have things neatly arranged, and I like to make sure that I can move stuff and nothing's in my way. If I'm filling up drinkers, I don't want to be having to walk around things. That's just my preference. So we've got here a collapsible table. It's a camping style table. It's really small and it's very, very easy to put away. So I can have this in the centre of my birdroom when I need to be working on something, whether it be getting birds out, pairing up, whether it be sorting birds for shows, all sorts of different things, even if it's just topping up waters or making nest sites. I've got a collapsible table, and then when I want to store it, I just collapse it down and it fits right next to the sink, and it's disappeared, and I've got loads of walking room again. To try and increase the longevity of this birdroom, I needed to make sure that I got a suitable drainage system for the roof. It's a 15 by 12 shed after all, so a lot of rain does fall on this, and especially because we're in England, it falls even more. And we needed to make sure it all goes into a gutter and into a suitable water butt, and anything that doesn't is drained away suitably to make sure that the bottom of the shed doesn't rot. It's not sat in any water, because I'll show you why, the reason we've actually put it straight on the floor, and that we can also collect this water to use. So when there's no avian flu problems or anything like that, and it's relatively clean, I can also use this to put in the birds' baths. It's a lot easier, and I prefer to give them rainwater generally for baths rather than sort of tap water. Just find it's a bit easier and just useful to have available when you need it right next to the shed. If you keep birds, you inevitably keep vermin. It just depends on how well you maintain that, as if you notice or not. Now, something that we're going to do with this is we couldn't really raise it off the ground because of any sort of height restrictions. So what we did is we put on a concrete base. That is meaning that nothing can particularly burrow underneath. We need to make sure that the cross-running beams that hold up the floor of this birdroom aren't able to be chewed through and vermin getting underneath. So we've got some tiles, some sort of slabs just there, and they are really useful to make sure that we can't get anything burrowing underneath or into the side of the shed, and that should maintain it well as well. And finally, I've put some traps and poison bait boxes out as well, just to keep on top of anything, rats and mice that come through. I don't really like to use poison. I prefer to kill them straight out with a humane trap, but when it is stuff like that you can't always be changing the bait on it or anything, it is a useful addition, and I do recommend that, even though they're not always the best, do get one, as it's going to keep on top of vermin much more than it's better than them killing your birds. In my previous birdrooms, I've also had a whiteboard on the wall somewhere to make notes day to day of anything that I need to make sure I'm checking, whether it be nest 1 that needs ringing, nest 5 that's just hatched, whether it be bird in cage 14 that doesn't look quite right. I'll have a whiteboard, so I'm going to get one here. I've had them in previous birdrooms, they're really good use. And this is really a bit of a waste of space, this wall. The doors here, there's not a lot I can do with it, so I'll have a little whiteboard here once all the electrical installations are finished. That's a work in progress at the moment, and I highly recommend you do that as well. You've just got something you can make a quick note on, and then when you come in the birdroom, just check on those things, and it is a really useful addition. So if you have enjoyed today's video from the new OC Avery Birdroom, then make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss any more future content, and of course part 4 of this birdroom build, where we bring in all the cages, we bring in all the birds, and we look at the finished product. It's going to be absolutely fantastic, and I highly recommend that you follow along to see this. Now, if you have enjoyed today's video as well, please smash a like on it. It's very much appreciated, and it shows me that you guys are enjoying this content. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.